Welcome back to the show. Let's talk about the Tribunal on the Law of the Sea and what they did yesterday. Well, Ghana has argued out the equidistant principle used in delimiting the maritime boundary between Ghana and, of course, Cote d'Ivoire. Whilst the tribunal rejected Ghana's claim that Cote d'Ivoire is stopped from making a claim for the disputed territory because of prior conduct, the chamber equally rejected Ivory Coast's claim that a meridian measurement is used. Here is the judgment.
The Special Chamber unanimously finds that it has jurisdiction to delimit the maritime boundary between the parties in the territorial sea, in the exclusive economic zone, and on the continental shelf, both within and beyond 200 nautical miles. Unanimously finds that there is no tacit agreement between the parties to delimit their territorial sea, exclusive economic zone, and continental shelf, both within and beyond 200 nautical miles, and rejects Ghana's claim that Cote d'Ivoire is stopped from objecting to the customary equidistance boundary. Unanimously finds that it has jurisdiction to decide on the claim of Cote d'Ivoire against Ghana on the alleged international responsibility of Ghana. 1.5 unanimously finds that Ghana didn't violate the sovereign rights of Cote d'Ivoire. Unanimously finds that Ghana did not violate Article 83, paragraph 1 and 3 of the Convention. And point 7 finds that Ghana did not violate the provisional measures prescribed by the Special Chamber in its order of 25 April 2015.
I'd like to thank all of you. The sitting is closed.
So that's how it all went down. Lots of people have said that there are judgments that's in English and which people can understand. It's that one to a judgment. But I'm sure at this point, most of us understand what this was all about, that Ghana can actually, Ghana did not violate its sovereign rights as one of the key arguments being made by Cote d'Ivoire suggested. Let me find out from my panelists what they think about this situation. A lot of people are happy about it, but let's start with the team. Yesterday, something that really struck me was what Kweku Baako said about the fact that the continuity. I mean, he didn't, of course, the whole thing was very technical at the time. So he said what he's seeing is continuity. And what that brings out is the fact that if we are united as a people, and if we all look at the bigger picture, the sorts of achievements that we could actually make. Malik, let me start with your thoughts on, please talk about the women for me.
Okay. They are very beautiful.
Oh, please.
And
they are better than beautiful.
They are very intelligent.
You should have started with intelligence.
Okay, so they are very intelligent. They are very beautiful. They are
nice looking.
Is that all you guys can say?
Nice seeing them huddle together and fight for a country they believe in.
True.
So that's nice. I wasn't surprised that that happened, because if you read group dynamics, you know that normally when there is an external attack on any group, it brings everybody together. Everybody rallies to fend off the attack. So this was a country hugely divided at home over political lines, and then find that a common interest in terms of resources is in danger because another country is attacking the country's interests. So it wasn't difficult to understand why the two would work together and pursue it in the manner that they did. So I wasn't surprised at all that they did what they did. It also tells you that if we put our efforts together, we can achieve great results, except that it's not something which I expect, because our politicians tend to be petty, especially when it comes to internal local issues, because
and anything that could score them political points.
And we have heard former President Mahama say that in this country nobody thinks Ghana first. In this country nobody thinks Ghana first. People think about themselves first, their family second, their party third, their community fourth, and then the country comes a distant fifth. And I think that he has a basis for saying what he has said, that this is what is happening. So because people want to see themselves, their party, their families first, that bipartisanship that all of us yearn for is not something which is going to happen. We can only hope that it does happen and that we can work together to achieve great results. But the issues were clear-cut, and there's no side was left with any option than to pursue it in the manner that they pursued it and to get the results that they got.
Okay, George.
Well, I was for once very, very excited
About Ghana?
About our women, that it is not all about quote-unquote wanting help from men in anything that they want to do, wanting favors even when it comes to governance or going into politics, and that women can do what is good for humanity.
But that's a known fact, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, your mother gave birth to you, she's a woman.
that is a different thing. But if my mother
How
is coming
different is
to
it?
And took care of him to be
my mother wants
responsible.
to,
Certainly.
if my mother wants to be a member of parliament, probably she will go to the radio station and say, look, let the party do some ABC and get women to contest, or let's vote for a woman as at the primaries to get her elected as a candidate. I'm talking of those things. But what these women have done have shown that if we leave women alone, they can prove what they are worth of. I don't know who actually started this whole thing, but whoever did it, it was a nice thing. The two of them coming together.
Picture?
No. I mean, the case was underway. And
Well, the case was started by the
yes,
by the under the NDC. Yes.
And when Madame Gloria took over, the first hearing they went together.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful.
Okay, so it's speaking about the bit you said you don't know was about who decided
Yes.
to let that continuity happen.
Yes.
I think it was pretty much what wouldn't have been a natural sort of procession.
Whatever it is, it is a good thing that they really demonstrated that they are mothers, and in this context, mothers for Ghana, and I loved it. Besides, they are coming from different political parties, and that makes it more beautiful.
Because there's no political interest at stake, George. It's the only reason why this will happen. There's no political interest at stake.
Isn't there? Because now
these same people.
now, did you see the quick response that the NDC put out there?
Yeah, we
to
started
make,
it.
and then exactly. So there is some sort of political.
No,
I think the
before
women
the
look beyond
judgment
that.
was given. The point I'm making is that the judgment has been given, so people are rushing to take credit for
Okay.
it and to demonstrate that we played this role and all
But
of
before that,
Before that,
you wouldn't see it as
so
an
nobody knew
avenue
where
to
it was
make
going to
political
go.
points.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
so there
the
was no
political point,
interest.
I belong to some social media groups. One from my own village, and
Yeah,
this
Prinso.
no Bongo. This is NDC
Oh, here
MPP
Manasseh comes
guys.
from the
Yeah, but
same
his
village.
part of his family comes from
It
Yepim.
seems Manasseh speaks better Frafra than him.
Well,
Manasseh
that's another
Manasseh says
debate.
bongo.
But you
He
see,
says bongo.
when-
he mentions it the way you will mention it.
when the judgment started
Yeah.
and it wasn't going in favor of Ghana, then one guy posted something. We told you how incompetent these guys are.
Okay.
If we had taken over this
Oh
case
dear,
earlier,
Ghana.
it would have been good. The one it started the other way, another one said, wow, we need Mrs. Bruapon to come and strengthen the Ghana legal team.
When they're speaking out of ignorance, wasn't that
These
clear
are
to you?
educated people.
Why? But the fact that you have educated doesn't mean that you have
can't be
you have
ignorant.
education in all.
My point is the
Respect.
partisanship that we have in us. There are so many educated people who will leave their conscience when it comes to party. But see, this thing about unity, Gifty, we were all here when one day a journalist of multimedia was attacked somewhere in the Ashanti region. We all became united, and we're all against that. One of us has been attacked as journalists. I believe that if I disagree with Malik on any issue. If we disagree on virtually everything, and somebody is attacking us as people from, say, Upper East or Upper West, we will unite and defend
and fight
that.
the common enemy.
Yeah, so whenever there's a common interest at stake, we are able to come together. So
is Ghana not a common interest for us to be able to come together and build it?
It brings to mind whether we are matured as a nation or we should see ourselves as a state. When you see yourself as limited by a boundary and you don't see yourself as common people with common interests, it becomes difficult then. We still have people who think they and us, even at the political level. NDC will think MPP is they and this is us. Okay. The NDC will think the same way. If it comes to even journalists, we think the same thing. You go on our side, so these are the Joy people, these are the GBC people. We still have that mentality. But till we get to that stage where we begin to see ourselves as one people with a common interest. So to some extent, I disagree with the former president, John Mahama, when he thinks that no Ghanaian thinks of the country first. No, they may be in the minority, but there are lots of Ghanaians who are committed. And when you sit far, unfortunately, some of them don't come to the media limelight, so you don't see it. There are people who are committed. When somebody is sick, somebody needs money to go for operation, deadly one, and you put it on the screens. People come and pay money, sometimes huge sums of money. They don't want their names to be mentioned. It tells you that there are good people down there who may be quiet.
Maybe there are not many of them.
Well, we have no statistics to.
Malik, as you come in,
to be fair, to just make a small point on that. To be fair, I think that the point the former president was making was not to state that there are no some Ghanaians. He was making a general comment about the preponderance of opinion is that this is who we have become, that we don't put our nation first. We put ourselves first, our families, our party, our community before our country. Generally, that's what happens. You have exceptional cases which happens in every situation, but generally, and I think that he has a valid point and you may agree with him.
Okay. I wanted us to talk about, Malik, to take your thoughts, for example, about what the future holds. I mean, it seemed that we had a lot of hope in the oil find at the beginning. Along the line, it appears that the hopes, whatever it is, keeps sort of waning down. With this particular issue that's coming up, even though we have won, etc., as they're saying, tallow is getting ready to start drilling again if government gives it the go-ahead, etc. What are your expectations of what's going to happen in terms of revenue generation and how open government is about it to Ghanaians?
Okay, so first of all, the first projections that were made were overestimated in terms of oil production. Because we hadn't struck oil before, we just struck, there was a certain euphoria, and that euphoria was actually not based on the real independent calculation of the figures. And everybody was basking in this glory that, okay, we have found oil and all our problems were going to go away overnight. I think with time, we have realized that that is not quite the case. The other problem is, what do you do with the little that you get? Because the earlier projections were that we were going to do 200,000 barrels of crude a day. At some point, we were doing 80,000. So look at the drop. So you were doing 200,000. This was the projection that you would do 200,000 barrels of crude a day. And then you came down to do 80,000, not even half, not even 100,000. You're doing 80,000.
Some have attributed this to corruption.
No, I think that a point can be made about how the oil proceeds themselves are utilized. And I have been in fora where civil society organizations have complained bitterly about the manner in which we are applying the oil resources. I remember in 2013, 2014, thereabout, we spread a small amount of oil revenue over so many projects that in the end, none of the projects was executed and the money was spent. In another instance, we spent so much money on what we call capacity building. About $44 million was spent on capacity building. There cannot be any justification for spending this amount of money on capacity building for a small oil industry such as Ghana's. We have the Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC. This is a committee which is supposed to be monitoring how our oil revenues are used and compiling regular reports to guide the conduct of the persons whose responsibility it is to take the decisions relating to how the oil revenues are managed. PIAC has consistently complained that it is chronically under-resourced.
At a point, they didn't even have an office. I don't know if they have one.
Absolutely. And the policymakers and the politicians who take the decisions and who are supposed to be held accountable are those who are supposed to make the funding available for PIAC to do his work. And if they are going to make the funding available for you to come and create problems for them or to compile reports which make them look bad, then why should anybody give you the resources that you need to do your work?
So what are your expectations, Malik,
so
going forward?
Expectations that it is good that the 10 fails and 10, I remember when the Tallow Oil first drilled these wells, they held a press conference and then they mentioned the 10 fields. The next morning there was a newspaper report that says that 10 new oil fields have been drilled. when in fact 10 is actually an acronym for Chinubwa and Yura and Ntomi. So those three oil fields are safe.
I mean, Malik, that's an indictment on journalism.
Well, but there are so many rot in journalism that we
my intention was not to indict
anyway, because I didn't see that report. But if what you're saying is true,
it's true. Then there was a newspaper publication.
Because if you don't know, you ask. Isn't that a very basic fundamental principle?
Well, but be that as it may, so it's good that those oil fields are safe.
Okay.
One of the major planks of the Ivorian case was that Ghana had violated the interim orders that were made by the Special Chamber of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, which was given in April 25, 2015, asking Ghana not to engage in any new drilling and all of that. The Ivorians were claiming that we violated these orders. The court made a determination that that was not the case, and that all that were happening was activities ongoing in these 3 wells which had already been drilled. So now the expectation is that some new wells will be found, some drilling will go on, we will find more deposits of hydrocarbon material, then we can generate more oil and generate more gas for electricity.
What I'm yet to understand completely is whether Ivory Coast is losing out. I mean, the extent to which Ivory Coast is losing out on this, because I don't think they're going to lose that. I mean, they're not going to lose and just sit down and watch themselves lose. They could either appeal or, I don't.
Sorry, if you look at the UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, that's UNCLOS 1982, it does not make, which is the foundation for the decision of the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea, it does not make provisions for an appeal. When ITLOS, that's the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea,
is it ITLOS or ITLOS?
ITLOS.
It's like either or either.
So when it makes
ITLOS,
when it makes a determination, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea does not make provisions for anybody to appeal against a decision of ITLOS. What it does provide for is to go for clarity. If there's a certain aspects of the judgment that you are unclear with or are uncertain of, then you can go back to the tribunal and then they will provide clarity. And you know that we did a similar thing with Abu Ramadan 2 or Abu Ramadan 3 when the Supreme Court gave its verdict on whether persons who use NHIS cards to register to vote, whether the name should remain on the electoral roll or not. The EC was not clear in his mind that the judgment were asking them to delete the names of persons who use the NHIS card. What the parties did was to go back to court for clarity. The only thing the Ivorians can do is to go back to the court if they are unclear about some of the pronouncements or the portions of the judgment that has been given, they can do that, but they can't go and appeal for the judgment to be overturned.
Okay.
It can't happen.
George, let me bring you in on this.
Well, I think going forward, we should be in a position to do same with our borders with other countries. So we don't wait for other
Something like this to
discoveries
come up.
before. But like you say, I don't think Côte d'Ivoire will be losing totally. Let's wait for the technical people to go in there and do the measurement.
The plotting has been done.
Apparently,
actually,
it's been
George.
done.
The plotting has been done. It
Tallow
shows.
Group.
So they are not getting
has-
anything?
It seems
Yeah,
that with
it seems for now.
the
but
status quo remains.
yes.
It seems that the status quo, unless of course there's some more information that we don't have.
For
knowledge.
now, I
Yeah.
still think that
It's the early days.
for the
yet.
very fact that a case has been determined and you are comfortable, it's enough for you to call yourself not a loser. So we are all, I listened to the
Is it
vice
because
president,
okay.
and he says, look, this is not a win for Ghana alone, it's a win for all of us. We've lived together as brothers and sisters. When you go to Sampa area, Bundugu and others, we have families in Ghana who have relatives in Côte d'Ivoire. So that is how we had artificial boundary that was created. So this hitherto could have led to some conflict.
Apparently, yes.
Yes, but the fact that it has reinforced the peace that we have, it is a good thing for all of us. Like he said, when President Kufuor first said that the discovery was a shot on target and the jubilation was all over, oh, the oil has come, and there were these funny videos or pictures from the Western region, and so on and so forth. The excitement was there, but the reality is that we do not have the capacity as a people to go into the work. And so we engage foreign parties, and they come with their tools, their equipment. So yes, we are getting less than 15%. The gas is for us. So it is good news. It will take some time before we begin to benefit. But for now, it's just that we need to manage our expectation. Last year, for instance, non-oil GDP did far better than the oil GDP. But a small thing added to yours is enough. The other argument is, look, sometimes it is how you are able to measure your budget according to your size that matters. When I started work initially, I went for a facility, and when the month ends and they take you like half of your salary, you feel, oh, you don't have
I like
enough.
it when people say I went for a facility when you
Yes.
actually went for a loan.
A loan.
That's what the
But see,
government equates.
After the facility was over and you have full salary, sometimes you're able to, is there any difference at all?
You don't tell. You can't tell the
You
difference.
can't tell. So whatever you have, you are able to manage it. That is what I think we should be doing. So let's begin to prepare our budget.
Irrespective of how small
Yes,
money
and focus on what we have now, not expectations of what will come. If it comes, we will do other things. So for now, I think it's good news for all of us. We should all be jubilating.
Jubilating is something that I'm quite skeptical about, because the last time we jubilated, we were told that it was too much of a jubilation at the time. We're still watching Editors Forum. I'm not sure if Malik, you have any thoughts or anything to add to the conversation about the ITLOS. Do you?
Oh, I mean, it's just to make the point that George was talking about earlier, when the courts, the judges were, the presiding judge was really giving the judgment and was taking Ghana's arguments and dismissing them. One of the major planks of Ghana's arguments was that by conduct, the Ivorians had engaged in conduct that demonstrated that they recognized that that part of the sea belonged to Ghana.
So why did we go to court in the first place?
And well, because the Ivorians were making claims, so we had to go to court to ascertain that.
They could have just said, okay, we
And
withdraw.
the court's case was that, no, well, when it comes to delimitation of boundaries, you cannot rely on anything other than hard evidence. And so because they were dismissing our argument at some points, a lot of people were anxious. And of course, you spoke about the language. Manasseh wrote on Facebook that he speaks and writes English, but they are giving a judgment in English and he doesn't understand it. and he doesn't understand it. So, but it was nice. It kind of brought back to memory some of the environmental law things that you read about the EEZ, exclusive economic zone, and the continental shelf, and all of those things.
Yeah,
it's nice.
Keep those words to yourself, maybe for another day. Well, let's move on to our final conversation about the Founders Day. I don't know if it's something that you're still interested to talk about. Some people have said that we should just shelve this discussion. In fact, his daughter, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's daughter, Samia Nkrumah, has said that if her father were to be alive, this will certainly not be a discussion that he'd want us to have. He would want us to have a direction. He would want us to maintain or build upon his legacies and not to be arguing whether or not he's founder of Ghana. When President Akufo-Addo went to the UN, he had a very brief line, if you like, a very brief sentence about it. Malik, let me start with George. I've been starting with Malik maybe because he's just seated directly to me. Founders or Founders Day. It's a discussion that we're still having. Unfortunately, whether or not we like it. First of all, let me draw your attention to the fact that on that day, the Nkrumah Memorial Day, which was the 21st of September, we didn't really hear anything from government. But for President Akufo-Addo's reference to the day in his speech at the UN, quite brief. But for that, there wasn't really anything. And I quite remember I was hosting the polls and I was talking to Deputy Information Minister Perry Okujeto. So I asked him, the first question I put to him was, if government is changing the day and saying that today is Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Day, and it is a day set aside to honor the first president of Ghana, what is the government doing about it? It appears the government has been conspicuously silent, and the line dropped. Okay.
Well, I'm a student of politics, and in the literature, there's this debate as to whether a leader is born or made. That debate began long ago, and I don't think it will end any soon. For me, this Founders Day dates back to that thing. If it is the case that leaders are born, do they have an expiry period? Do they enjoy copyright in perpetuity? If they are made, is it the same thing? But go into history, and so many question marks are raised. I went through the statement from the Flagstaff House. I didn't have much of a problem with that. If so many people contributed to the formation of modern day Ghana. Remember, we were then living in colonies. We became Ghana after independence. But regardless of that, people made contributions. If we want to recognize all of them, there should be nothing wrong with that. In Nkrumah's speeches, he constantly referred to the women, the market women, the chiefs and people. So it gives me the impression that without the support of all these people, we wouldn't have been where we are today. And so yes, we should be in the position to recognize whoever played a role. But the question is, globally, among leaders, there's a leader. I like religion, and there's this program say iron sharpeneth iron. Among even the pastors, there's a pastor. You understand? So yes, among leaders, there will always be that distinguished one who should be the one we all look up to. To that extent, having Nkrumah as the founder of Ghana makes sense. But it doesn't mean that all the others who play the role have been neglected. And you go to the history, practically on the ground here in Ghana. Have we forgotten all the others? When you go to the University of Ghana, I'm not aware of any Nkrumah Hall. I'm aware of Mensa Saba Hall. That is a recognition. When you go towards La, there's Dankwa Circle, referring to this politician Dankwa who played a crucial role. We have Nkrumah Circle, recognizing Kwame Nkrumah. We have Jake Obechebe Lamte Circle. We have Akwaji. The list goes on and on and on. We may not have done enough in terms of recognizing all these people who played the role. To that extent, can we begin to have ways of recognizing all of them.
Like
but
how?
trying to, like naming national monument after them. We can have other things to do to honor them. There are so many ways of doing that. But it does appear that the debate is like having a central figure who will compete with that of Nkrumah. For me, that one cannot stand. Nkrumah and his legacy goes beyond Ghana.
Okay.
As we speak, Nkrumahism is studied as a course in universities outside Ghana. Nkrumah's status can be found outside Ghana.
But what has changed? The government hasn't really changed anything.
That's what I'm
21st
saying.
of September is still there.
It's still a day.
Oh.
So let's begin to understand that what is it that we want? Are we going to recognize the role others played? So the statement itself, when you read it, there's no problem. The problem is with the commentators. Somebody is focusing his argument on the fact that, look, Nkrumah was invited.
Right.
You understand?
He was
J.B.
invited.
Dankwa himself was invited by power grant. To what extent do we recognize power grant in our history? We recognize J.B. Dankwa than power grant. But power grant invited J.B. Dankwa. So where do we position that or situate that? So as a country, let's begin to look at the way of recognizing the people who play the role without trying to look down on others. And by saying that, I'm not saying that it is not fair to recognize Nkrumah. I'm neither saying it's not fair to recognize the others. I'm saying that let us be that inclusive by involving all of them. Okay. But technical as we speak, in the past, with Founders Day, GBC, for instance, will normally do a documentary and get this old man, KB Asante and others.
Did you do anything?
They did that,
Memorial
yes.
Day.
I didn't do, but they did that.
Okay.
You get people like KB Asante and others to give you the history. And anytime I listen, they will mention all these people, where it started, Salpon, here and there, till independence.
So it's not like those people have been left out?
I don't think so. I think some of them have not been treated fairly. Pa Grant, for instance, I don't think he has been treated fairly compared to the others. Yes, to the extent that some of them, we cannot remember them. We should be in the position to add all of them. It appears we focus too much on the big six. They were not the only people who played the role.
Okay. So you were disappointed that government didn't do anything? I mean, as government, as...
Yes. I mean, why do we ask people not to go to work? In the public sector,
and watch
sit in the house
NBC
and waste time, waste productive hours when we are doing nothing as a state. So if government will not do anything on that day, there's no need declaring it a holiday.
You think they should scrap that day?
If only we will not do anything as a state and will sit in the house and gossip or go and drink.
You have time with your family, then you can tell them, your family, about Ghana's history, perhaps.
Well, which is the history?
The UGCC.
There's this platform, there's this social media platform that a teacher asked a child, who is the first president of Ghana? And the person asked, are you NDC or an MPP? The teacher insisted, and the final comment was, in 1957 it was Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, in 2017 it is J.B. Dankwa. And I'm like, wow. Let's not take these things for granted, because in the villages, chances are that some children will take this as serious things and begin to mislead themselves. It wouldn't help us. Okay.
So on that day, it was the NDC that organized a walk, and then the CPP as well. In fact, led by Kwesi Pratt. Kwesi Pratt actually held his own press conference, and the CPP held their press conference as well. I'll bring you excerpts of that one right after Malik speaks his mind on this Founders Day issue.
That's if I have an opinion on this matter.
You don't?
I'm entitled not to have an opinion. Just to point out that the NDC, I've spoken to some people who are aligned with the NDC who said the walk was not to commemorate any Founders Day or anything.
Let's start with the government itself and the argument. You know, were you expecting the government would do anything spectacular? I mean, the argument has been that President Akufo-Addo is doing all of this because of the involvement of his father. And now on the day of the Memorial Day, if you have changed it within a very short period of time, I mean, you change it with such short notice and there's nothing to commemorate the Memorial Day. People thought that, a few people have thought that, well, we could have done better with that.
Okay, so the day was Founders Day. I'm saying that before it used to be Founders Day. Was any activity done? Did that diminish the significance of the day? So that raises question as to whether, is there a legitimate basis to say that to the extent that no activity was done, then something was amiss.
So should
Because
government
this was a day which was already declared as Founders Day, and it was in memory of Nkrumah as a founder of Ghana. So the day was set on his birthday. There was no activity, even for the proponents of the Founders Day. There was no activity since 2012 or so, when this was done. There was no activity.
There have been programs
marking Founders Day.
Yes, but it's been more political.
And these programs are not individuals, but they are the state.
Yes,
that the state is organizing them.
Issue a statement, then they normally will either CPP will lead it, and somebody from government will come. Government will issue a statement.
And I don't know if it's really a media thing. And
so last year, what was done? Last year,
I can't quite recollect.
Last year there was a statement.
The year before, what was done?
Last year there was a statement.
Well, he's saying there was a statement. I can't quite recollect.
There was
but
a statement, and there was a program actually that was spearheaded by the CPP. But there was a big event organized by the CPP, of which government issued a statement, and government was actually represented at the Kwame Nkrumah Museum. I was there myself with the CPP.
As far as I know, there's not been any elaborate plans to mark this day with any activity. To
that extent, I agree.
And to that extent, I find it baseless to argue that there ought to have been some activity to mark Nkrumah Memorial Day.
Well, whether
because already there are complaints that the Independence Day celebration itself is tiring and boring. And if we are not arguing that Nkrumah Memorial Day should also be filled with activity or programs or events or whatever, I have a difficulty in appreciating exactly what it is we are saying. As for the arguments about, oh, should it be founder, should it be founder, I think I'm tired.
You're tired. Me too.
I do not believe that if you were to remove the apostrophe before the S,
it would make any difference.
It would make any difference. I don't believe that it would diminish Nkrumah's standing in any form. So I don't really get what the argument is about. Nkrumah himself has repeatedly recognized the contributions of the persons whom others want to add to the list as founders.
The last thing I heard about that, there was a quotation, I guess, in the I heard in the Hansard or so, that he did not make reference to any specific people, but he did indicate that this was not done alone, that he did not do this alone.
But it is obvious. The history bears that out, that he didn't do this alone.
He couldn't have done it
so
alone.
If you say founders, what does Ghana lose? What is that not the history?
In that case, what
does that diminish the significance of that towering figure, Nkrumah?
In that case,
absolutely
Malik, let me
not.
find out what your thoughts are on the NDC saying on that day they organized the walk, and I'm not sure about that timing. Otherwise, I'm not sure we'll be able to bring you that soundbite, but we played it quite extensively on JoyNews, on the JoyNews channel. Malik, that they're going to resist, and they were quite. They were quite aggressive, you know. When you hear some of them speak, and in fact, Professor Dele was speaking at the CPP press conference, everybody was aggressive, and they were saying, we're going to resist any attempt to change the history and to water down Nkrumah's.
So how is that watering down Nkrumah's? How is Founders Day watering down Nkrumah's contribution? Nobody has been able to convince me.
Was the NDC working to save themselves?
The NDC is a political party. And all political parties are opportunistic, and they will take advantage of whatever situation prevails to either stick it in the eye of their opponents or to make themselves look good. And all political parties is not exclusive or peculiar to the NDC. All political parties do this. So I wasn't expecting the NDC to take this lying down, because remember that they instituted the date. They instituted Founders Day. So I wasn't expecting them to do something other than what they did.
Okay. But George, let me bring you in on this. Samia has said that the NDC did not even do much in terms of recognizing and building upon the legacies of her father. For example, she cites Tema.
Well, if Samia is saying that, I would disagree with her. Samia becoming...
Well, she thinks that they're just talking. And they're
yes,
just
but
talking
Samia
to
herself
make
coming back to Ghana and being
points.
able to win a seat was because of the NDC's rule in that. She wouldn't have been a member of parliament. But you see, I have a problem with the NDC. Of course, the NDC brought Samia. It was when this day was instituted that Samia came in, and you know the history. When Samia came in, they were kind of worshipping this lady here and there. And so when she got there, she had already been made a popular national figure. So it was easy for her to win the election. And NDC did not contest that constituency. So Samia won. So for Samia, she owes the NDC some gratitude.
I have to check that.
But you can check it. I have a problem with the NDC taking advantage of every CPP program and going in there. The NDC is actually the problem of the CPP today. Everything the CPP should do and mobilize its support and move forward, the NDC will infiltrate and end up taking the glory out of the CPP. So I think the NDC should declare its stand. If you want to be CPP, come and join the CPP or go and join the CPP. If you don't want and think you have a separate ideology, stay in there and propagate that. But don't be taking advantage of CPP programs and ending up making CPP inferior and taking advantage of that and building on your political opportunities. That is not a good way.
All right, I'm going to take a very quick break. At 6:30, like I said, we're supposed to be linking up with DW Deutsche Welle in Germany. Let's take a very quick break here. We'll return with that feed.
And here at Wedding, in the parts of Berlin, we're trying to engage some electoral officers and voters as to what will also influence their own decisions as they enter into the polling station just behind me to cast their ballots. So how did the process go for you?
Yeah, today I had to vote for two different options. One is if the airport should be closed or not, and the other one, for my district, what kind of party, should be run the district.
So what are expectations come 6 p.m. when the first results start coming out? What do you expect?
They said before that Angela Merkel will be the Chancellor again. So that's what the people expect. But I hope that Martin Schulz also has a chance.
So you are like supervising the elections here?
Yes, a little bit, yes.
How has the process gone so far? And how many people are you expected to turn up here to vote?
Yes, it's normal. It means it is not too much. It is like every election. Except the Europawahl, it was low.
What influenced your decision to vote for a particular party?
It's like since a long time of years, you look what is going on in the society, what needs the people, and what is the reality, and is a gap between expecting and I expect Erwartung, this and what is necessary. And so if you feel some gap between poor people and rich people, and so you are influenced by your voting, what is Gerechtigkeit, what justice. So this is my main point for me.
I'm working for the left party, so I that's my opinion to vote. So,
do you think that the left party will get into parliament?
Yes, sure. I'm a little optimistic in this way, so I guess we could increase our and maybe it's better in German.
From Wedding, parts of Berlin in Germany, this is JoyNews in collaboration with Deutsche Welle Television, bringing you up to speed as far as the German.
All right, so let's cross over to Germany now. But before that, let me say a very big thanks to our panel. So I can excuse them. Just so you know, in less than 30 minutes, we'll also bring you the Joy News Prime. Malik, thank you so much for coming. Malik Abbas Dabu is editor at myjoyonline.com. He always gives us lots of depth and a lot of knowledgeable argument. Malik, thank you. And he even has the audacity to tell me sometimes that my argument is lazy. Actually, not my argument anyway. George Asakere is host of Behind the News at GBC. George, thank you also for coming and for all of the in-depth discussions that we've had. We were supposed to link up with Latif Idris and Arba Kumsin, two of our colleagues who are covering the election for us, as well as Oliver Salad of the DW, but I don't know, it seems we're having some technical challenges. Let's give it a try and see. Latif? Okay, we've lost Latif. Let's reposition. I mean, let's put ourselves together and bring you Joy News at 7. But as and when, Joy News Prime, as and when we get Latif, we'll be able to bring you that conversation from back there in Germany. My name is Gifty Andopia, and I'm likely to come back. All right, let's head to Germany at the moment. I have Oliver Salet and Latif Idris standing by. Oliver, it's good to have you both. Let me find out from you what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, we're getting preliminary results here in Germany, and while Angela Merkel and her conservative CDU-CSU party has come out as the strongest party again, and she will very likely be the chancellor again of Germany, it is quite a slap in the face, I have to say. The results that she got here tonight, around about 33%, it's still preliminary results, not official results yet, are the second worst results she has got since the end of the Second World War. And the same applies for her partner, her former partner party, the SPD, the Social Democrats, that have had their historic low, actually, the worst result they have had here so far, with around 20%. Now, at the same time, we're having the AfD party, that is a far-right party, for the first time in parliament, and it's also the first time in many decades, actually, that there will be a right-wing party represented in the German Bundestag, in the German parliament. And that can be seen very much as a slap in the face, of course, for Chancellor Angela Merkel, but also as the bill for her open-door migrant policy, for allowing more than 1 million migrants coming into the country in 2015. That reflects tonight in the election results here.
Sounds like some kind of endorsement of her policies. But let me find out, before we go into the impact of this result on, governance in Germany going forward, let me find out from you how the announcement actually works. All we saw was that, perhaps from here, media reports on who is winning, on how the results are coming in, and then all of a sudden we see the two leaders come out to, one comes out to concede, and the other then gives her victory speech. How does it work that the results are announced and everybody understands that this is it?
Yeah, that's right. Well, first of all, it's a long day of elections, and then at 6 o'clock the polling stations close, and right after that, at 6 o'clock sharp, the first exit polls are actually published, and that's people who are just leaving or who left the polling stations are asked, what did you vote for? What is your preference today? And based on these exit polls, we're having the first, exit polls only, but they are quite precise, I have to say, and they have not really changed those a lot since we're getting the preliminary results. So what we can really see for sure at 6 o'clock already is a trend. And then the later the night gets, the more precise the results are. We're now having preliminary results, and we are waiting for the preliminary official results to be announced, and that will happen after midnight Central European time tonight.
I see. Let me bring in my colleague Latif Idris. Now, Latif, you've been there, and I'm sure that there's been a lot of information going around about the migrant population in Germany. In our case, let's stick with the Africans. What is it that they've been saying about the process so far? That one of their main concerns, we gather, was that the AfD will get a chance to go to the Bundestag. with the results coming in and with the foresight, the information that's available to us that they are likely to get in there, what has been the reaction?
Yeah, the reaction, we yet to hit the streets and visit these migrant communities to find out from the people what they make of the results so far. But then if you also ask about how the migrants are failing, let me also quickly mention this, that there has been a system that has been put in place in this year's election. If you visit a place somewhere in Germany, Berlin proper, there was this center that was created for migrants, people who are not German citizens, to visit there and cast their votes. Now, the vote by these individuals will be counted, but in the final analysis, it's not going to count and have any impact on the national poll, if you like. And so the German government is giving these migrants some kind of opportunity to express what they feel as far as governance system in the country is concerned. And if you talk about how Angela Merkel, Chancellor, opened Germany's border to these migrants, they feel so happy. They feel that that move by the Chancellor gave them relief. Most of them were fleeing war-torn country like Syria, tyranny from other governments in the West African continent. And so opening the border of Germany to these individuals, they feel that it was a humanitarian move. It meant a lot to them. If they had the opportunity, they would vote properly for her, and they feel that their vote would count and make a difference in the German election. I
find it very interesting. But I would think that they're trying to look for the level of acceptance among the migrant community. But let me bring in Oliver in again. Oliver, what are the impacts that we're expecting from this? It's some sort of continuity. But for you, what will be the impact? And you are, of course, you know the German situation much better. The impact of the election result as we are seeing on governance going forward from now?
Well, it will be quite interesting because the junior partner, the Social Democrats, have already ruled out getting into parliament, getting into government again, in fact. And that means that technically there are just a few options left here right now, which is a so-called Jamaica coalition. Jamaica because of the colors of the parties that will be involved. That's the Conservative, which are black, and then the business-friendly FDP, yellow, and the Green Party, obviously a left party, that have quite different standpoints there in some issues at least. And it will also be the first time that such a coalition will be formed on the national level. It has only happened before in regional parliaments. And at the same time, also, the business-friendly FDP wasn't even represented in the last government, in the last parliament, will be coming back now. It's a comeback for them. Lack of experience here, of course, because they're going to go directly from outside of the opposition into the government if that coalition will be formed. And so there's a lot of uncertainties here, and also the negotiations might take a while. The new government will then feel the pressure, though, by this very strengthened right-wing party, feel the pressure of further reducing the number of migrants here in Germany. More than 1 million came in 2015, and some people in Germany, not everybody, but a minority here of around 13% who voted for the AfD party, are not very happy with that situation, and that will certainly be one of the major challenges for the new government here in Germany.
I don't know which of you two would be well positioned to answer this particular question, but about the impact it will have on German-African relations going forward. We know that Angela Merkel made migrant issues, and in fact, people said that he gave Africa an unprecedented level of attention during the G20. So I'm interested to find out how this is going to, this result, the continuity that has been established, is going to impact the German-African relations going forward. Any of you can answer to this for me, and then we can move on with your final words.
Well, I can give it a start, and then maybe you can add something, Latif, to this. Obviously, the relations with Africa are important right now, and if you look into the party's manifestos, every party had 1 or 2 paragraphs on Africa. You've just mentioned the G20 presidency of Germany and the compact with Africa. So, and even Merkel, when she had her victory speech right now, mentioned Africa, especially when it comes to migrants, of course, again, which is one of the core problems here. And what they want to do, and they will move on forward with this, is improve the economic situation in African countries by raising private investments, for example, in order to reduce the amount of migrants in Europe and reduce the reason for flight, basically.
Yeah, essentially, that's the sense we get, Gifty. I was speaking to one of the Germans here ahead of the elections today, and she mentioned to me that one of the key issues Chancellor Merkel is considering is that they are going to help African countries set up businesses and create job opportunities for their citizens back home in Africa, so that they do not have any cause, any reason at all to cross borders to enter into Europe in search of greener pastures. In their own backyard, what Chancellor Merkel wants to do is to create that green pasture there. So you stay home and make life better for yourself rather than coming to Europe to break your back for Europe.
Hopefully
and
so.
Your country stands to lose.
Hopefully so. I wanted to pick your final thoughts, but we've run out of time actually because of we've got news. But if you could do that in 30 seconds, what will your final words be, gentlemen?
Well, final words is being an eye-opener. I mean, covering this German elections, similarities between Ghana and German election has to do with the fact that you get to the polls, people come in and cast their ballots. And the different thing, though, is that back home in Ghana, Gifty, you know that after voting, people would still want to stay at the polling station to ensure that they witness the counting before they go back home. Okay. Here in Germany, the situation is a bit different. People vote and go back home, sit home, relax, and listen to the results as they come on in the media.
Great. We'll come back to you, Latif, much later. But Saleh, your final words?
Well, it's a surprising. The details of this results are a bit surprising. Let's say we did expect it the way it came, but the strength of the right wing comes as a surprise, and it will further strengthen again the right wing in Europe, which was already thought to be on the decline, really. And we will have to see how the new government here is dealing with that challenge.
Okay, thank you so much, gentlemen. It's great having you today. Since morning, we've been on this, and right now we can finally say that it's over some way, somehow. Thank you so much. Oliver Saleh is correspondent with the DW, and Latif Idris, my colleague from here, also joining him there. Latif, have fun, and Oliver, I'm sure we'll get in touch with you some other time. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, so this has been the German elections here at your election headquarters.